Hello guys, so in this first video we're going to try and review a few bits and pieces about on-tick execution. Okay, as you already probably know, right, NinjaTrader has three main modes how the strategy can execute, right? I'm not going to talk about on price change at the moment. That's kind of a hybrid of on each tick. I never use it. I'll explain why in the further video, right? So basically, we're going to talk about on bar close and on each tick. Okay, now on bar close is pretty straightforward, right? So let me do this. I'm going to print, okay, and I'm going to print time, and I'm going to print index 0 plus whatever. I don't know. Let's print the close price and pretty. Yeah, and I want the state as well, right? So I want the state. Okay, so let's go ahead and enable playback. And I'm going to enable playback, and before my bars load and my strategy compiles, can you please have a look that my playback is actually enabled in historical mode, and that means that I'm actually playing back ticks. Okay, so in order to play back ticks, I simply need to download them just like that. Go to any chart. So I don't need to go to any market replay, historical data like market replay, get market replay, etc. Right? So this is for market replay. Okay, this has L2 data. Historical replay has only L1 data, so you don't have to do it like this. You could either download it from the top one here, okay, or you could download it just by simply opening a chart. First get, I don't know, 300 days of 150 tick bars. That will download ticks anyway, okay, or 1 tick bars, doesn't matter. As long as you download bars, okay, that are built from ticks, right? So just so you know, NinjaTrader only uses 3 types of bar data, right? So in order to build any intra-bar days, NinjaTrader will use minute bars. Okay, so it actually gets minute bars, historical minute bars, from your provider, a data provider, and builds your hourly bars, 30-minute bars, 3-hour bars from those minute bars. So it doesn't get hourly bars from data provider. It gets minute bars and then builds everything else locally. Then if you ask for days, weeks, or months, it will actually ask for daily bars from the provider. And pardon me, and anything exotic like range bars, Ninja Renko bars, tick bars, whatever, it will download ticks. Okay, so that's why sometimes if you use some exotic bars like Renko Range or Ninja Renko or Uni Renko or whatever, that's why it will actually take so long to build them. All right, so sorry for wandering off. Anyway, so first you got to get some of those ticks. Okay, once you have them, you go ahead and open any chart, the chart that you download the ticks for. And I'm gonna just go for like a 5-minute bar chart, 5 days, and we're gonna enable. So this strategy is called tick execution. Okay, and I just want to show you a few bits and pieces, okay, of how things are structured in index wise. So I'm going to go Ninja Calling Strategies. Geez, where is it? Tick execution, there it is. Okay, so as you can see right now, I have on bar closed calculation method. Okay, so basically, if I enable this, each bar will be executed. Okay, and that's pretty much the end of it. Okay, when I start replaying, nothing's going to change. Okay, it's just going to execute on each bar close. Okay, so every single bar close is just going to give me the closed bar. So as you can see, this bar is still forming. Okay, so the time right now is actually 16 minutes. Okay, 16 minutes. This bar is going to have a close of 20. Okay, so NinjaTrader builds bars by close time. So this has a timestamp 20 past 12. okay, although the time right now is 16 past 12. So this is still a forming 20-minute closed bar, okay? So next, let's look at this. Something interesting, okay? So if I change, okay, my execution to on each tick, let me just do it. I'm not going to recompile the code, okay, to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this to on each tick, okay? So what's going to happen now? Nothing really changed on historical. Nothing really changed, okay? So it still started with 1805, okay? And the only thing that did change, actually, okay, so this bar here, the last bar, it's actually 2701. So this last bar right here, okay, it actually closed that as well, okay. So if you go ahead, it's not really, doesn't really bring any importance, but just so you know, if you change to on bar close, it won't close that last bar. It stops at this bar. This is the last bar. This is the last closed bar. This bar is not closed yet. So that's why Ninja does not execute on bar close for that last bar. Okay. However, if you change to on each tick, that last bar will be also executed. You can see that this timestamp. Okay. Although this bar is not closed yet. Okay. It has not yet closed. Okay. Now, if I continue replaying, okay, NinjaTrader is executing on each tick. You can see this bar is still forming, okay, and it's just giving me the tick price. So I'm just printing out the tick price all the time, okay. So this index, although on the historical it will just give me the close, on the live it just starts giving me the tick time. Okay, so how do I get it to print on bar close? So in order to print on bar close, I have to write if IsFirstTickOfBar, okay, and I would have to reference not 0, because 0 would give me the open, okay. So basically what happens, what is first tick of bar, okay. So if you look at how a bar is built during live execution, right, is basically, so here's your bar that has closed at 5 minutes past 12. Okay, how do you know it closed? You know it closed because these ticks that were forming it inside of it, once you got a tick that was a tiny millisecond or any value after the 5 minute past 12 timestamp, that's it. That's your first tick of bar. So when you ask Ninja, is first tick of bar, it waits for this tick, okay, and it just stands on it. And if you ask for 0 index close, what you will get is actually this tick price, okay. If you ask for close 1, you will actually get the close of this bar that just occurred, okay. So let's experiment with this. So I'm gonna index 1 and is first tick of bar, okay. So 2 main takeaways from is first tick of bar. First one is, right now, most probably I'm gonna get an index out of range exception, and you're gonna wonder why, or maybe you won't. You see, I'm getting an index out of range except. Why is that? Well, because on the historical part, so basically that's what makes when you try to develop a strategy that has to run on each tick, okay, during your execution on the during your execution, sorry, on the historical part of the data, okay, and then it has to run tick execution during live, it becomes a big trouble. Okay, so just for the clearness, oh yeah, okay, so tick replay is turned off. Okay, I'm gonna get to this in a second. So I got index out of range exception. Why? Because on the first bar that was there, I'm actually addressing index 1. Okay, so basically what you have to write, like for real, if you're developing for both states, historical and live, you'd have to write this. So first of all, if current bar, well, you can either write if current bar is less than 1, okay, returned, okay, so do not call for the previous bar, okay, but whilst you're on a historical part of the data, you're going to be writing all your logic in respect to the bar close, right, not the previous bar, right? So you're not going to be, basically what I'm trying to say is first tick of bar during live execution does not return, it doesn't work. It's just basically true on every single bar, right? So if I go ahead and print this, it's just going to be always true on every single bar close. That's why you're getting this, right? So a trick I use is sometimes when I have to, I don't like to do this, but I write like this, private int, okay, and I kind of create something like index, okay, so, and I'll say if state is equal to historical, oh my god, return 0, okay, and I have to say it like this, right, don't I? Return 0. If not, return 1. So basically what I write here is my index. Okay? So I'm not going to get an index out of range exception now. And I can write my logic, I don't know, entry logic, exit logic, whatever, you know, when like, you know, MA's cross or whatever. And this, if you use this index, you know, structure, then it'll work okay for like the historical part and the live. So if I go ahead and reset this now, it'll be fine. So you can see that its first tick of bar is always true. So 605, it sees, although it's not its first tick of bar in a historical, it sees it as if it's a historical, all right? And then when the live starts, it's just going to start giving us, so you can see that it's now returning. So this bar is 05, okay? So you can see when this bar closed, we landed on the first tick of this bar and looked back at the values of this bar that has just closed, okay? So just not to want to stretch out this lecture too far, okay? But I want to mention that, I mean, this is probably the only way to actually approach if you are like, if you want to sort of hybrid, write the logic hybridly. You know, you are running on tick on live, and you still got the historical part, right, to kind of settle with, right? And your historical execution is never going to be like your live execution, because your live execution is on tick if you're writing for on tick logic, okay? So what I'm trying to say is that if you decide that your strategy is going to execute on each tick and the whole logic is based on each tick stuff, like for example, let's say this, you got two EMAs, okay? One is high, one is low. When they cross, you want to enter long, okay? So let's imagine that this is the fast one. The red one is the fast one, okay? So when they cross, you want to enter long, okay? Your bar closed here, and you had the bar closed here. So how would you write this logic? You compare these points on the EMAs, okay? These ones, okay? And you say, so let's write it, okay? This is for the bar close logic. So private entry, private no, void entry logic on bar close, okay? So I'm gonna say enter long equals, let's say EMA, let's write well, I'm just going to write like this. Let's assume we have those EMAs. So EMA 0, okay, so for the current bar is bigger than EMA before it, okay. However, before it was actually smaller, or smaller and equal, or smaller and equal to, okay, than EMA 1. So this is exactly what is written here. So the current EMA is bigger. Sorry. So this is EMA fast, obviously, and this is EMA slow, and this is them on this bar, okay, and this is again EMA fast, and this is EMA slow, okay. So this bar, the EMA fast is bigger than the EMA slow, and on the previous bar, it was smaller than the EMA slow, okay. So this is very, very simple stuff, right? Now, if you were to replicate this logic, okay, towards on-tick execution, but keep the on-bar execution, okay, how would you actually do that, right? So this is just, you know, straight on-bar. I don't like those red. Let me just write this very quickly. So private indicator is EMA slow. Oof, wonder which one do I need. Okay, so let's go and whatever. And EMA fast. So just don't get those mistakes. So if I was to say the same, so keeping the logic the same, but on tick. Entry logic on tick. So what does this mean? Then I have to say if is first tick of bar. So first I gotta, you know, I gotta figure out that I'm on the first tick of bar. Okay, and then I have choices. Okay, because if you write it like this is not gonna work. And why is that not gonna work? Because watch this. So this is how we stand. Okay, this is our on bar. Now imagine, so this is our red. Okay, this is our slow. Okay, so basically you are at the point of the first tick of bar. So this tick is just closed, and that's the only point where you allow these EMAs to cross. Okay, so basically this is going to be static, and this is going to be not static. Okay, so when that tick closed, it just went like this, bang. Okay, and that's the only part where it can't do that. Okay, if it didn't go like that at that point, okay, you don't care anymore. Okay, what you really want to say, I mean, if you want that, that's fine. All right, but you got to understand that this is what you're going to get. What you really want to say is that, hey, this bar closed, so I'm standing on this tick right here. So I want to address this bar and compare it to this bar, where this bar is going to be 1 and this is going to be 2. Okay, so you're going to write 1, 1, and then 2, 2. Or the other choice, if you want to have this method working hybridly for historical and for live, okay, you're going to go index, right, which is going to return 1, okay, for when we're going to be live, and index plus 1 here. So this is going to work. It'll return this during the historical, and it'll return the other one, okay, for the. So let me just do this for you, so you could have this as your notes. Oops. So, oh, okay. So hybrid on each tick and on bar close. Okay. So get index. Okay, just index. So this is just index, and this is index plus 1. Now, taking this thing further down the track, so this is exact same logic, right? So you now understand. I wonder where I missed the, I guess here. Okay, so this is exact same logic. So the EMAs have to close on bar close. All right. What if you're what if you're interested in stuff like this? So you want to actually, you know, you want to sit there and monitor the forming bar, and the moment it actually closes above, okay, at that particular moment, you want to, do something. How would you write this? And this is exactly, so in that case, so I said private void entry logic. So this is entry logic on bar close, entry logic on tick, same as on bar close, okay? Entry logic on tick and on bar close, okay? So these all three pretty much are the same. So one tick difference, right? However, this one, entry logic, so this is the true on tick. Entry logic on each tick. Okay, so in this particular case, you just need to write this. Okay, so your var, sorry, this. Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I want to compare each new incoming tick to the previous value, right, of EMA that was there, right? That was there 1 bar ago. 1 bar ago, not the previous tick, 1 bar ago. If you put 1 here, you don't get the previous tick, you get the previous bar value. Last closed bar, okay? Now, if you want to compare, so entry logic on each tick, entry logic on each tick versus previous tick. I'm not saying that you're going to do this. I just want you to understand the main differences, right? So entry logic, so if this was, you're comparing, so here's your last closed bar, okay? And you got your EMA, and your forming bar is here somewhere. So you got your EMAs going up and down like this. And you're always comparing this EMA value that right here you got to the EMA value that you got right here. But what if, let's say you want to compare the EMAs, right here with 1 tick difference? How do you do that? Well, to do that, you need to create a private double previous fast MA, okay, and a private double previous slow MA, okay. Oops, previous slow MA. So what you got now, you got the current one that you're going to be comparing. So this is fast, so this is fast, this is slow, this is slow. You gotta get rid of this, okay. And right here, you gotta reassign them again. So previous fast equals EMA is now equals the current one, okay. And previous slow is equals to the current slow. So on the next tick that arrives, you're actually going to be comparing the previous ones with the current ones, okay? That's also an option, okay? So you can see that when things start to go on tick, the variety of logic expands, blows up, right? However, like, as you can see, on bar close logic is very, very limited, okay? So, like, what you end up with is, like, you gotta, if you want to write something on tick, right? And you also want to execute the strategy historically, you come to an understanding that historically it's going to execute completely different. Well, it doesn't have to, okay? Because Ninja has an option which is called TickReplay. So you go to Tools, Options, Market Data, Show TickReplay, and for your data series, you enable TickReplay. What this is going to do for you is actually going to execute your historical bars on each tick. So as if it was playback on historical playback. Okay? So in this case, if you go ahead, okay, so on bar update, we're going to turn off IsFirstTickOfBar. Okay, and for historical, we're going to print 0 as well. Okay, well, let's just make sure we are actually printing 0. So this thing is actually going to print out every single tick that exists in this time series right now. It's going to take a while. So this TickReplay business blows up your CPU, okay? And there's also a few other things that you should really have in mind when you start developing for it. So if I enable this, look, it's calculating. Look, it's playing back every single tick that it had. So it started at, you can see it's going to take a while, okay? So every single tick is now playing back, okay? All these ticks it had. So 260122, which I believe is somewhere here. For some reason it started at 20. Okay, that's probably where the ticks, my tick data started, okay? That's why I don't, so probably if I go ahead and check, okay, so you got to make sure you got tick data, okay? So if I go ahead and historical data, historical, if I go to NQ 0322, right, last tick. So is this February? Oh, actually, this is January. Well, it's 26. Well, it seems that I do have data, right? Maybe not enough or something. For some reason, didn't want to execute through 27th or 23rd. 23rd. Didn't want to execute starting from 23rd. Okay, so that's something that has to be explored. I don't want to waste your time in the video, right? But just make sure you have the data. Okay, make sure you have the data. Okay, so 5-minute TickReplay. Okay. Maybe, it's to do with this, basically, with the way the start date is set, probably. Okay, if I go ahead and disable my playback and go just onto a chart, it's going to execute through the whole chart, okay? Because we're in playback, it probably starts the execution not from the beginning, but just from some market replay date you set here. It doesn't really matter. It's not part of today's discussion. What I want to say is that if you enable TickReplay right here, and your strategy is also set to on each tick execution. Well, in our case, it's set to on each tick execution inside the UI. Okay. So in that case, it's going to execute on each tick inside for each bar. So what are you going to get? Imagine you were using this sort of bar close logic for the EMAs, like that was not involving the IsFirstTickOfBar. That was like intra-bar logic. In that case, you're going to see a historically closed bar where you're going to see an EMA going like this and the other one going like this, okay? And you're going to see an entry and you're going to sit there and wonder, why did that thing enter there? And the reason for that is because it executed intra-bar. It actually, at some point, okay, this red one, okay, at some point intra-bar whilst executing, it went like bang, okay, and it entered. But when the bar closed, okay, it just came back to the value where it was, okay, because, well, the bar is probably not the best example, okay, so the bar could have been a red bar with like a big tail, okay, so it went up, the EMAs crossed for like a few seconds and then came back because it closed down. But however, the signal fired, okay? And that's good if you're going to get a bar which is, straightforward. You can see, okay, yeah, it makes sense. But some bars you're going to get, you'll be like, why did it enter? And you're going to start debugging, okay? So what I'm trying to say is when you start developing for TickReplay, and if you're going to backtest your strategies in tick replay mode, it's gonna be CPU intensive, it's gonna take a long time, and it's gonna be hard to debug. Okay, so basically some stuff that's gonna be on there you might see on the chart and will not correspond to your logic, and you'll spend a lot of time trying to understand what happened there. Okay, so guys, final takeaway from this video, right, is first tick of bar. And if you use, try to save your CPU, and you use this mode called on price change. Come on, why doesn't it show me? So you know what I'm talking about, right? So the other one right here, which is on price change. Okay, on price change does not guarantee you that first tick of bar is going to fire. Okay, I asked support about that, and they said no, it doesn't guarantee. So basically what you might get is you got a bar, okay, and then you get a tick. For example, this is the close of the bar. You get a tick, and it's on the same price. You know, so this is a 5-minute bar, okay, and this is like a, I don't know, 5:01 timestamp already. So your bar closed, but the price has not changed. So your so basically, on bar update will just not fire. Okay, so I mean, you're not gonna get an on bar close event. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. If you're okay with that, just bear that in mind, that this is just gonna be like that. Okay, so that's why I use on each tick all the time, because I want to make sure that my bar closes all the time, because it's at least some sort of sync point. Okay. Okay, guys. So that should be it for this lecture. So we went through some indexing moments. Okay, how to kind of build the indexing if you want to build for playback and for historical and backtest at the same time. We looked at IsFirstTickOfBar. That thing returns true all the time on historical. Now, obviously, if you set this thing to on tick replay, okay, on tick replay, and your strategy is also executing on each tick, and then obviously on the historical part of the chart, it will actually work as if, you know, it was real time. Okay, but I'm saying that if tick replay is not enabled, okay, then it's always true. Okay, and then you gotta adjust the indexing. Okay, because for the historical bar, the closed bar is going to be the 0, but for the live bar, 0 is going to be the current tick. Okay, so we also looked at some intrabar crossings as intrabar signals. We also looked at the fact that if you index 1, that's not going to give you a previous tick. It's going to give you a previous bar if we're talking about live. Okay, and we also looked at tick replay. Okay, tick replay for the historical part of the chart. Okay, so guys, see you in the next video.